The command and control of the United States Fifth Fleet has been severed. As of 0300 hours Zulu time, more than a dozen senior American naval officers at Naval Support Activity Bahrain are down, incapacitated by a sudden, aggressive, and entirely unknown pathogen. The heart of American power in the Persian Gulf has stopped beating. And the most critical question being asked in classified briefings at the Pentagon is not how this happened. It is whether this was the first shot in a biological war with Iran. The situation on the ground is one of controlled chaos. Naval Support Activity Bahrain, the sprawling headquarters for CENTCOM's naval forces, is under a full quarantine. No one in, no one out. The entire command wing, Building 261, is a ghost ship, sealed off by U.S. Marine Corps FAS teams. Inside, the leadership of the Fifth Fleet is effectively gone. The fleet commander, the deputy commander, the chief of staff, the directors of operations, intelligence, and maritime planning, a total of 14 senior officers, from admirals to captains, all struck down within the same 6-hour window. Their symptoms are terrifyingly uniform. A rapid onset of extreme vertigo, followed by acute neurological distress, culminating in a non-responsive catatonic state. They are alive, but they are gone. Local Bahraini hospitals are on standby, but U.S. military protocol is absolute. The victims cannot be moved. The agent is unknown. This is no ordinary outbreak. The world's most advanced military does not get taken down by a simple virus. Within hours of the first officer collapsing, a request was blasted to the United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases at Fort Detrick, Maryland. A specialized chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear unit, the same teams trained to operate in the aftermath of a dirty bomb or a nerve gas attack, was wheels up in under 90 minutes. Their mission: identify the agent, establish a chain of custody, and determine its origin. This is a crime scene, an act of war, until proven otherwise. And the strategic clock is ticking. The Fifth Fleet is the gatekeeper of the world's oil supply. Its area of operations includes the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and the Suez Canal. 20% of the world's petroleum passes through Hormuz alone. With its command structure decapitated, thousands of American sailors and billions of dollars in naval assets are in a state of unprecedented vulnerability. A U.S. carrier strike group currently on station in the Arabian Sea is now operating without direct guidance from its primary command authority in Bahrain. They are on their own. While America's best biowarfare experts are on a flight to the Gulf, the real question is, what happens in the next 48 hours? With the U.S. Navy's brain effectively removed, who is watching the swarm of Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps fast attack boats that constantly probe and harass shipping in the strait? This attack, if that is what it is, did not happen in a vacuum. Intelligence analysts at the National Security Agency are now frantically re-examining every shred of data from the past 30 days, searching for a pattern they missed. And they are finding one. 3 weeks ago, an unidentified high-altitude drone loitered over NSA Bahrain for 22 minutes before disappearing. At the time, it was logged as a probable anomaly, a sensor ghost. 10 days ago, a sophisticated cyber attack, originating from IP addresses known to be used by Iran's Unit 1337 Cyber Warfare Division, briefly crippled the primary water desalination plant in Manama, less than 5 miles from the American naval base. It was dismissed as routine cyber espionage, and just 72 hours before the first officer fell ill, Turkish intelligence reported that a high-value defector, a biochemist from Iran's SPND organization, the very heart of its suspected clandestine weapons programs, vanished from a safe house in Istanbul. A drone for reconnaissance, a cyber attack to test defenses and create a distraction. A missing scientist. Viewed in isolation, these are just background noise in the constant, low-grade conflict between the West and Iran. But viewed in the aftermath of a decapitating strike on a U.S. military headquarters, they form the chilling blueprint of a meticulously planned, multi-domain asymmetric attack. Iran cannot match the United States carrier for carrier, or jet for jet. They know this. Their entire military doctrine is built around exploiting weaknesses, finding seams in the armor, using proxies, cyber warfare, and terrorism. Biological warfare is the apex of that strategy. It's cheap, deniable, and psychologically devastating. The U.S. intelligence community has long suspected Iran of maintaining a bioweapons program, a violation of the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention, which Tehran signed. Publicly, their facilities, like the Razi Vaccine and Serum Research Institute, are for peaceful, defensive research. But intelligence leaks over the years have painted a different picture. A picture of weaponized anthrax, smallpox, and research into novel, gene-edited neurotoxins that leave no trace. A weapon that doesn't just kill, but paralyzes. A weapon that can neutralize a military command center without firing a single shot. Now, a new piece of intelligence is coming in. A flash message from the advanced security team that landed ahead of the CBRN unit. The communications blackout from Building 261 is not just a quarantine protocol, it is a total lockdown. The Marines on the perimeter have been ordered to sever all hardline communication cables going into the building. Nothing gets out. The CBRN team is not reporting back through normal channels. They are operating in total electronic emission silence. This escalation means one of two things. Either they are dealing with an agent so contagious it could be transmitted electronically via data packets, a concept straight out of science fiction, or they have found something inside the command center that they fear the enemy is still listening to. The chain of command is in tatters. With the commander and his deputy both incapacitated, authority has fallen to the fleet's chief maritime operations officer, a captain who, by a sheer stroke of luck, was inspecting a destroyer in the port of Jebel Ali when the attack occurred. A captain is now in command of the most volatile naval theater on the planet, with the Pentagon screaming for answers he doesn't have. The entire global command structure of the U.S. military is on edge. Strategic Command has quietly raised the force protection condition level for all critical assets in the Middle East. They are bracing for a second strike. The investigation inside the building is proceeding with terrifying slowness. The CBRN team, now encased in Level 4 positive pressure biosuits, has a single priority: find the vector. How did the agent get in? Was it aerosolized? Pumped through the building's closed-circuit HVAC system in a targeted attack that lasted only a few minutes? The system's filters are being removed for analysis. Was it a contact agent planted on a door handle, a keyboard, or a coffee machine in the command center's briefing room, where all 14 victims were gathered yesterday afternoon? Then they find the first lead. Security logs show a small diplomatic delegation visited the base 2 days ago. It was a routine visit, but one member, an administrative attaché from a neutral third-party embassy, was granted unescorted access to the command wing's common area for approximately 7 minutes. Flight records confirm this individual boarded a commercial flight to Moscow less than 12 hours before the first American officer collapsed. He is now gone, a ghost, a potential patient zero, or more likely, the delivery man for a weapon of unimaginable sophistication. The lockdown isn't just to contain the agent, it's to contain the victims. Initial reports from the CBRN team's remote medical sensors are coming in. The affected officers aren't just sick, their neural activity is spiking in ways medical science has never seen. They are conscious, they are aware, but they are unresponsive. It's a waking paralysis. And as U.S. forces establish a hard perimeter around the command building, the most terrifying question is no longer, what is this? But what are they becoming? The first transmission from inside the quarantine zone just came through. It wasn't a distress call. It was a single, repeating data packet, broadcast on a closed military network. And it wasn't a message in any human language. It was a complex data stream, a package of information so dense and structured that the first NSA listening post to intercept it thought their systems were glitching. It was unencrypted, yet completely unintelligible. Why send a signal that no one can read? For 2 agonizing hours, the brightest minds at Fort Meade worked on it, believing it was a new form of Iranian encryption. And then a junior analyst, a specialist in biological signal processing, made a horrifying discovery. He ran the data stream not through a decryption algorithm, but through a bioinformatics scanner. The result came back instantly. The signal wasn't code. It was a perfect, one-to-one digital translation of synchronized human neural activity. This wasn't a distress call. It was a status update. The 14 paralyzed officers inside Building 261 were no longer just victims. They were nodes. The pathogen hadn't just attacked their bodies. It had hijacked their minds, weaving their individual consciousnesses together into a single, biological processing network. A human server. The weapon's purpose was never to kill. It was to convert. To transform a U.S. command center into a hostile intelligence-gathering asset, using the brains of its own commanders as the hardware. Every memory, every piece of training, every security clearance held by those 14 officers was now, potentially, an open book. But open to whom? And what question was this thing trying to answer? The revelation sends a shockwave through the highest levels of the U.S. government. The situation in Bahrain is no longer a medical crisis. It is an unprecedented breach of national security, an act of cognitive warfare. The acting commander is given an impossible order from the Secretary of Defense himself: Sever the connection. At any cost. But how do you shut down a network made of living, breathing, decorated officers? The team inside the building receives the new directive. Their mission has changed from contain to disconnect. The team approaches the first paralyzed victim, a senior intelligence officer, strapped to a gurney. His eyes are wide open, staring at nothing, a thin trail of blood trickling from his nose. But the medical sensors tell a different story. His brain is on fire, processing information at a rate that should be physically impossible. They are witnessing the birth of something entirely new. The origin of the signal is pinpointed. It's not coming from their mouths or any device. It's being broadcast directly from their collective bioelectric fields, a low-frequency radio wave emanating from their synchronized brain activity. The CBRN team's first attempt to block it with a localized EMP fails. The signal flickers for a nanosecond, then reestablishes itself, stronger than before. It's adapting. It's learning. Outside, the global implications are beginning to metastasize. Russian and Chinese naval assets in the region have suddenly broken their routine patrol patterns. They are converging on the Persian Gulf, moving not with aggression, but with a predatory curiosity. They know something is wrong. They are sharks, smelling blood in the water. The lockdown of the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters is no longer just a story for intelligence channels. It's about to become the biggest international crisis of the 21st century. The acting commander watches the tactical map, a constellation of threats coalescing in real time. The Russian flotilla to the north, the Chinese carrier group to the south. They are no longer hiding their intent. They're preparing to catch the prize, whichever way it falls. The red phone at his elbow rings. It's the president. The question is unspoken, hanging in the air over the secure line, across continents. What is your solution, Commander? There is no solution, only choices. Then, back at Fort Meade, the junior analyst sees it. A phantom echo in the signal. The broadcast isn't just radiating outwards. It's aimed. A tight beam transmission, precisely angled, targeting a specific U.S. military communications satellite in geosynchronous orbit. It's not a broadcast. It's an authentication request. A key, turning in a lock. The implications are instantaneous and absolute. The 14 officers are not just a hard drive. They are a living cipher. Their combined security clearances, their biometric data, their years of ingrained knowledge, it's all been weaponized into a single, unstoppable password to bypass America's highest-level strategic defenses. The goal was never to steal yesterday's secrets. It was to command tomorrow's army. The countdown is on. The network is seconds from achieving a full handshake. If it succeeds, the entity controlling it will have the keys to the kingdom. If the Russians or Chinese intercept and crack it first, the result is the same. Checkmate. The order comes down from the Secretary of Defense, his voice devoid of all emotion. A man officiating the death of hope. Commander, terminate the source. Immediately. Inside Building 261, the CBRN team leader receives the command. Omega. The last letter. The end. His gaze falls on the intelligence officer, still strapped to the gurney, his eyes wide and vacant. The medic beside him opens a sealed case, not with a weapon, but with a sterile tray of syringes. This will be a quiet, intimate, an unspeakably violent act. The first injection is administered. On the monitors, the beautiful, complex data form of the network signal instantly fractures. It convulses. A blast of pure digital static. A silent scream. Across the room, the other 13 officers begin to seize violently, their bodies arching against their restraints as the collective consciousness they are part of is torn apart. The team moves with a terrible, somber purpose, from one gurney to the next, and then silence. The signal is gone. The broadcast has ceased. On the global map, the predatory advance of the foreign navies grinds to a halt. In the Situation Room, men and women in uniform sag with relief and profound sorrow. The breach was prevented. The world was saved. The price is displayed on a monitor. 14 official portraits, each one now stamped with a single crimson word, sacrificed. But in the digital autopsy of the network's final milliseconds, the NSA analyst finds one last, perfectly intact packet of data buried in the noise. It wasn't a part of the handshake. It was a message, sent in the instant the network knew it was dying. A final burst transmission. It's not code. It's a destination. A star chart, pointing to a single, unremarkable red dwarf star, and a set of coordinates for its third planet. The weapon wasn't just trying to conquer, it was phoning home. The front line is no longer on a map. The battlefield is no longer Earth. A new war has begun, fought in the silence between worlds. To understand what comes next, To see the full story, you need to be on the front line of information. Subscribe to Breaking_the_front.